Young Irishmen were volunteering to do their part in the Great War while conflict was looming back home. How did these events affect the lives of people living in rural West Cork?
There was a Master Harry Wilson, he was teaching in Melody Hob, and there was three of his sons in the army. And 2 were killed within 2 days of each other.
Oh.
And the poor mother never got over it. She never got over it, you know. Years afterwards, like, you know, when we were going to school, we used to go into her and this kind of thing, you know, and she'd be telling us that Vivian was coming home tomorrow night, and she'd have the room ready for him and everything, you know, and it's living in the past.
There are 23 names in total engraved on a World War I memorial plaque that hangs in St. Matthias Church, Ballydehob. Why did these men volunteer to fight in the war in Europe? To try and find out, I tracked down the grandniece of a World War I veteran, James Skuse.
He would have been born in Coosan, which is about 3 miles from here up the Bantry Road, and he lived there with his other brothers and sisters, probably 7 in the family, I think. And then he went to serve his time as a tailor with his brother in Bantry, and then in 1915 he decided to go off and join the army.
The only man from the village of Ballydehob that I met and spoke to was Mr. Skuse, to ask him how he got on, how did he get into the war. And he walked, he said, from Ballydehob to Bantry, and he eventually found himself in the Irish Guards.
Maybe it was a sense of adventure. He and his brother both went, and I think there would have been a lot of other young lads from the area probably would have gone off to join the army at the time, so it might have been a sense of adventure. It might have been money. I don't know how much money was to be got from tailoring, and he wouldn't have had the family farm, so I suppose maybe he just wanted to build a life for himself.
Yeah.
And the best way of getting out of poverty, and at least getting a suit and a pair of decent boots and an overcoat and 3 meals a day for poor people, people whose poverty were a follow-on from the famine.
There was also sympathy for the subjugated Belgium, and a fear that Germany would set their sights on Ireland if not deterred. A total of 206,000 Irish men served in the British forces during the Great War.
Yeah, he does talk of being in the front line on Christmas Day when the Germans came to the fore, and he says, I happened to be in the front line one Christmas night, and at 12 o'clock the Germans started singing Silent Night and put up a lot of fairy lights all along the front line. There wasn't a shot fired and all was quiet. He also speaks of being blown up by a shell at some stage, coming out of the trenches in the Somme. All I seem to remember was the stretcher bearers taking me up. All the rest is a blank, almost a miracle.
Jim Skuse was in the same class as my Uncle George that was blown up in the Somme.
Oh.
And when the things cleared, Jim Skuse was in the medical service. And it was Jim Skuse picked up George Butcher off the ground and put him on a stretcher, and he was put on an ambulance and taken into hospital. That was the last Jim saw of him.
While these men were fighting and dying in the British Army, nationalists back home were demanding an end to British rule. Ex-soldiers of the British Army did not always receive the hero's welcome.
The man on the side of the road sitting on a bag of straw, breaking stones to be used to repair the road. He had been in the war, and he said, as far as he knew, the County Council, Kilkenny County Council, had issued an order that no ex-British soldiers were to be employed if there was an ex-IRA man available for the work. Because
Jasper then came out of the army with a captain's pension, and he started up some business in England. But his mother then, that would be my grandmother, he used to be very shy coming home. You know, he wouldn't blow around that he was in the British Army.
Which does make mention of some IRA people coming to the yard who wanted to steal a horse, or not steal a horse, wanted to take a horse, and his brother, my grandfather, saying like, on whose authority were you supposed to take this horse? And there was some bit of, not a tussle, but words spoken, and eventually I think either Uncle Jim or my grandfather fired a shot at the IRA, but I don't know, were they singled out? They would have been singled out probably because they were Church of Ireland, but I don't think it was to do with Uncle Jim coming back from the war. But he also makes mention then of being cycling home from Skibbereen on one occasion and being pulled over by the IRA by the Cross House, which is between Ballydehob and Skibbereen. And Tom Barry was the commander of that unit, and they took him up a side road and had a bit of an interrogation, and then Tom Barry asked him did he know any of their group, and he said he knew a guy called Jim Allen, and this Jim Allen vouched for that Uncle Jim was okay, and he was let go. So there was two kind of mentioned incidents with the IRA.
But we here know what they said about Ballydehob. We never had a problem. That, as you know, like I'm Church of Ireland.
Yeah.
We never had a problem with neighbours or anything. They were all there. He was a very, very nice man in that Jim Skews. I used to enjoy talking to him. And of course, he could talk about anything. You know, he is. I remember I was at his funeral. He was buried out in Goleen, and I remember I was talking to his niece. I said, "There's an awful lot of history gone down there now."